Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the TV, snaps for the TV. I watch all the TV and then I react to it over here and then we have a conversation in the comment section. So if you're somebody that loves TV shows and loves to watch TV shows and binge TV shows, why not come over here and hang out with me? Subscribe to my channel and we'll talk about all kinds of TV shows. I watch all the reality shows. I watch all of the true crime shows. I watch all of the trending shows on Netflix and Apple. Anything that anybody suggests to me, I will watch. I'm currently right now watching about 15 shows a week, and then I'm binge watching other shows around it. Last night, I just finished season 1 of Found, and I'm on the second episode of season 2. Season 2 of Found is currently going on. It is one of the best shows I have ever watched. I love it so much, and the other show that I just finished binge watching was Dark Winds, which is on Netflix right now, but it started on AMC, and it's fantastic. So if you need some mystery thrillers during spooky season for Halloween as recommendations, I would highly recommend Dark Winds. Well, Dark Winds over Found. Dark Winds is so fantastically done, but Found is really good too. Found is about an agency that works to find missing people, and it's just, I'm going to do a full review on it, but it is fantastic, and I'm just absolutely loving it. So today, I want to kind of do something outside of the norm. I want to talk about a psychic show on TV. I want to talk about Tyler Henry's show on Netflix that was trending called Live from the Other Side. So I'll be honest, I only watched one episode of the show because it was trash. It was absolute trash, and it's absolutely fakery of the world. So for those of you, I'm not a skeptic, okay? I just want to make this very, very clear. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that are skeptics. I'm not a skeptic. I 100% believe in psychic powers. I completely believe in mediumship. Gargoyles, Ouija boards! I believe in all of that kind of stuff. I have gone to my fair share of psychics in my life. I've gone to my fair share of mediums. I have gone to all of it, okay? And I highly believe in it. And I've watched all the shows from the Long Island Medium with Teresa Caputo. I did a whole video on my drama channel because my friend bought us tickets. My friend Tanya Jean, she bought us tickets for my birthday for us to go see her. I've done a lot of videos talking about Teresa Caputo. Teresa Caputo does exactly what I'm talking about with Tyler Henry today, which is called cold reading. And I've watched all the shows. John Edwards back in the day, I think his name was. I watched all the psychic shows, and I like them. I like the psychic shows. I'm just always very, very skeptical about it. There was the one that I love, and I actually looked her up. I can't remember what her name is. It was like something the psychic, and she doesn't have a TV show anymore, and she doesn't even do readings anymore, and she lived in San Diego. She was young. She was like 25. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? She's from Pennsylvania, and she lived in San Diego with her friend, and I think she has since gotten married and divorced, but she was like the closest of any TV show. I mean, back in the day, I thought Teresa Caputo, like I would have sworn that woman was real, okay? When we went and saw her live, let me show you what the live show is like with Teresa Caputo, okay? So Teresa Caputo, like, we were in this large auditorium, all right? And she goes over and she'll look at a group of people that she'll look at like let's say that there's like 80 people in this group over there, okay? And she'll say, okay, I'm being pulled to this group over here. Now there's 80 people in that group. And she'll say, okay, I'm feeling that there is a father figure. And she'll follow that up by saying, I feel like there's somebody that has had a father figure that's passed. Father figure would be grandfather, father, uncle, brother, best friend that feels like a father. Okay, everybody in the world's probably had somebody like that that's passed in their life, right? And then, like let's say out of the 80, 60 people raise their hand. And she'll say, okay, I feel like it is, so now she can see who she's working with, right? And then she'll say, I feel like that person passed over the age of 50 and it was like they passed suddenly from like a heart attack. And then half the hands go down, right? And then she's got like 4 people in a row. So she circles on those people and she's like, okay, I feel like my energy is coming from this group right here. Okay, and they haven't put it together yet that they're the only 4 that have their hands up in a row. And she's like, okay, so I feel like it's coming from this group over here. I can't really figure well it's coming. But it's somebody that was like, I would say a grandfather, a father, or an uncle, and their name started with like an S, like a Steve. And like 2 of the hands go down, and then one of the person's like, yeah, my grandfather's name was Steve, and he died from a heart attack. She's like, okay, I think I'm talking to you. So then she'll start saying things, and 50% of the things she'll get right, and 50% of the things she'll get wrong. And if she gets them wrong, she'll go, maybe it's not you. Maybe is it you? Like, does any of this? And the person will nod their head. And then she goes on to the next person, okay? It's called cold reading. I saw it in person. On the TV shows, it's completely different. And what I have found out in retrospect is that a lot of these people on TV shows are given a lot of information before they do readings, okay? I've had producers that when I talked about Teresa Caputo, I had producers reach out to me and say, I used to work on some of these shows and they are given a lot of information before they do the readings. So before I even get into this whole Tyler Henry thing, I want to say, and Tyler Henry was somebody that when he first came out, I started watching his shows as well because I liked his show back in the day. Not the one on Netflix, not this current one that he has where it's like a sit-down set, and he has like 4 guests on, and they give him objects, and he feels the objects, and he writes on a pen, you know, furiously. He's like, yes, okay, it's coming to me, and blah, 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 whatever. But let me explain to you what cold reading is really, really quick for those of you that do not know. So cold reading is a set of techniques used by psychics, fortune tellers, and mentalists to convince people that they have psychic powers. Cold readers use a variety of tricks to gain information about a person without prior knowledge, including shotgunning, making broad statements that apply to a large group of people, such as listing relatives and seeing which one elicits a reaction. Barnum statements, making vague claims that appeal to a majority of people, such as mentioning a father figure instead of just a father. Rainbow ruse, including a trait and its opposite in the same statement, such as saying someone is shy that can be outgoing, okay? Which means that if you say to you, well, your aunt, she was really loving, but she could be kind of mean sometimes too, right? Like, okay, that applies to almost everybody, right? So that would be a rainbow ruse. Ignoring misses, using vague statements to gain information and then quickly moving on to correct guesses. So ignoring all of the ones that they get wrong and moving on to the correct guesses. Turning failures into successes, finding ways to turn misses into hits, right? So when they get something wrong, then they turn it into, like if somebody says like, no, I don't have an aunt, then they'll say, but there's somebody that feels like an aunt, right? And then they go down that road. And when that doesn't work, then they turn to the next person. Tyler Henry did this on this show. I couldn't even believe that this show was trending. I was like, this show is such buffoonery. He is no more a psychic than I am. And I can prove to you, like I just did, that I could do this in an audience and people would believe that I was psychic. Turning failures into successes, finding way, oh, I just said that. Recapping and reusing key details, being an excellent listener and reusing key details. So that's when you say like, okay, so the things that we know are this, this, and this. Tyler Henry did this in the show. Analyzing body language, paying attention to the person's body language, age, clothing, hairstyle, gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, level of education, and manner of speech. So it's all of that. So for example, on the first panel of the show that Tyler Henry has, and I'm going to address this, he has somebody that's from England. And he says to this gentleman from England, it's actually Kim Kardashian's hairstylist. And the only reason I know that is because my husband watches the Kardashians and I watched one season. And she took him to, he's the guy that got engaged, the guy that was on White Lotus. And then they already are divorced or whatever. But like they hired Shania Twain to sing for him and all that kind of stuff. So I know who this guy is, okay? That's the other thing is Tyler Henry always acts like he like met Boy George and he's like, I have no idea who you are. He always acts like he has no idea who these people are, right? But on this cast, he actually went in and he's like, we sat to the girl who I think is from Selling Sunset. He said we sat on a fundraiser together, so he did know her. And then the other guy, he's like, oh, I know you. He says it like, but he just kind of plays it off. But he says this guy, he says something, I'll give you the exact quote, but he says something like, I'm feeling like a connection from somebody, but it's 2 people living in different countries. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you know he has an English accent, so obviously his family is in the UK, and like he lives in Los Angeles, and you know that because you know who he is. And the guy's like, oh my God, yeah. And I'm like, this is no more a psychic. So I watched this show because I wanted to do a response to it. I actually talked about it in my vlog. And a lot of people on my vlog were like, oh, I'd love for you to talk about Tyler Henry. Now, I want to tell you, okay, I find no pride in calling these people fakes, all right? I watched Sylvia Brown for years, okay? My ex and I would record Montel Williams. I think it was every Wednesday when he would have Sylvia Brown on. I read her book. Her book, The Other Side and Back, is like a huge part of my spiritual journey. I loved Sylvia Brown, okay? She, you know, smoked 5 packs a day. Montel, I can feel somebody in the third. You know, I loved Sylvia Brown, okay? But if you want to find where they found out that she was a fraud, it's on YouTube somewhere. You can put in Sylvia Brown as a fraud. It's this woman, she's doing cold readings in the audience. And this is what I'm talking about. And I'll never forget my ex and I watching this episode. And I just was like, I looked at him like, oh my God, I'm devastated. She's such a fake. And so this woman stands up in the audience and she says, yeah, my husband died. And Sylvia Brown, without missing a beat, says, he's in water. And she goes, what? And she goes, he died in water. And the woman looks at Sylvia Brown, and she goes, no, my husband was a firefighter in 9/11. Like, he went down when the towers collapsed. And Sylvia Brown does not miss a beat. She says, they're never going to find him. He's in water. And she's like, okay, she's like, he was a firefighter, the firefighting hoses. Like, she takes it even, I mean, it is like baffling to me that she's like, not in that moment, she can say, oh, I'm getting it wrong already. I mean, she turns it into saying, like, he's in water where? Like, I mean, it's just like, I remember watching it, and I was like, not only is she insensitive and disrespectful and letting this woman hang on a hope that doesn't exist, it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, for me, that's where it's too much. And so a lot of these people I've watched for a long time, and not just for, like, gotcha moments, because I believed them for a long time. I wanted to believe them. Tyler Henry, it's interesting because he's somebody that I did not believe in right from the very beginning. It was like all the information he gave was so vague, and people would just like eat it up. They'd be like, oh my God, yes. He'd be like, you grew up somewhere in the eastern United States. And they'd be like, yeah. And he'd be like, And I was like, this is so fake. Because if they said no, he'd be like, oh, so it was the West, you grew up in the western United States, somewhere closer to California. And they'd be like, yeah. And he'd be like, okay, yes, you see, I'm on the right track. I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that Tyler Henry does. And I was like, he is a fake. He's completely a fake, okay? Not to mention his mom is his manager, and they act like he doesn't have any information, but he always like kisses his mom before shows and stuff. And I'm not saying that he's getting all the information, but I think she is, and he's giving it to, or she's giving it to him. I don't know. I'm not buying it. So I go in and I watch this, right? And I'm like, he is not a psychic, but he is fantastic at cold reading, but he is a complete fake, okay? So I go into this, and he's asking these women these questions. So they all of them have these objects, right? And he's like, you can give me these objects, and he like feels them, and he's scribbling on his pad. That's what he does, and he explains the whole thing. He's very condescending to the people that he reads to. So he's got this pad and this pen. He's like, so what I do is I like scribble until the spirits come through and they start talking to me, and then like I let you guys blah, 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 whatever. And he's very kind of condescending to the people that talk to him. And so like he'll scribble on, and he's like, like they're talking to him in his head. And so then he looks at this woman, and look, the first question he asks her is, are you ready for this question? He says, did your mother have an aunt? Okay, now, I know that that might sound like a crazy question, okay, to you. But let's just think about it for a second, okay? Did your mother have an aunt? That's the exact question he asks her, okay? So if you think about that, like if you said to somebody, like you wouldn't ask somebody, like, did your mother have a mother? Because obviously everybody had a mother. But when you think about it from the perspective of, did your mother have an aunt, all right? Some people be like, well, not everybody has an aunt. You actually do, okay? Like if you think it through, you're gonna have an aunt. Or an aunt. If she said no, he would have said aunt figure. It's so vague. And she and her sister look at each other and they're like, oh my God, she did have an aunt. I'm like, seriously? You think he's psychic on this? So then he goes to this other woman. He says, did any of the three of you in your family, and it has to be a woman, who have had any medical issues? Okay. So if I looked at any of you out there and I said, are there any women in your family, okay? Out of the three, let's just say I picked three of you people out there randomly that are watching this video right now, and I'd set you down on a couch. And I said, out of the three of you, do any of you have a woman in your family that has medical issues? Seriously? I probably have 5 people in my family, 5 women alone, that have medical issues. I mean, who doesn't have medical issues of some kind, right? These are the vague questions he asks. Then he goes to the 2 girls at the beginning. He asks them to tell them why they're there. And they say because they want to connect with their dad. They start talking about their dad. So he doesn't even have to figure out that it's their dad that's passed. And he goes, I'm getting a feeling that your dad in the 80s. Now, if you look at their age, okay, of when they're about 30. So he's in his head doing math of how old his dad would have been. So their dad in the 80s would have been like at the height of whatever. And they're like talking about like their dad riding like bikes and like motorcycles and stuff like that. They've already said that. And he goes, I'm getting the feeling that your dad was very cool. Well, if he rode a motorcycle, don't you think he thought of himself as kind of cool? Most people that ride motorcycles think of themselves as kind of badasses, don't you think? And I'm like, who didn't? And he goes, I'm getting a sense that he looked very cool. And they're like, oh my God, he did. He looked very cool. You know what I mean? Okay, so then he goes on, he talks about money issues with their mom. And they validate it. And then he comes back to it later because they're talking about hoarding, all right? They're talking about hoarding with their mom. So then he turns that into, well, she had money issues. Well, I think that's fair to assume that a lot of people that hoard either have a lot of money that they're hiding or they're having a lot of money issues, which is why they hoard, okay? And then he asks them to explain it, and then he goes off of it. He completely goes off of it, right? And doesn't give anything specific. And then he goes as far as family dynamics, and he talks about how he's putting blessings on all of them, and it's so much lightness. And I'm like, this is what he does. And he goes, okay, I'm putting blessings and so much lightness over this, but there's nothing specific in his reading at all, okay? Now, if you are somebody, I have had better readings going up to this place that used to exist in Indianapolis called New Age People, paying $20 for a half an hour from this psychic named Dave. He gave me specific things. I mean, I did a whole video about it. He gave me specific things in my reading, okay? He told me about dogs that I had had. He told me about my grandmother making an apple pie when she always made apple pies. And I know that that's kind of generalized, but he said stuff about my grandma. He said so many specific things about specific family members. Okay, and I paid $20. Even if he was fake and he just guessed, $20 is fair for that, okay? But you're talking about Tyler Henry that did less of a job than this guy that worked at New Age People in Indianapolis, Indiana for $20, okay? And he's vague. And then wait, what he does is when he gets around, he goes, I'm putting so much blessing and lightness around this so there's a lot of healing. So then they're crying, right? Okay. So then it goes on, and he says something about, is there anybody in your family that has mental health issues? And I'm like, who doesn't have family in 2024 that has mental health issues? I think the reality is most of us have mental health issues, you know? I mean, that's a pretty generalized statement in today with the awareness of mental health. And he goes in this, and then he says something about this one person. He asks this woman, he's like, did you have a grandma that opened her home to somebody? Now, that person could be anybody, okay? Like a neighbor, a friend, or whatever. And she's like, no. And he's like, nobody? She didn't open her home. He keeps on pushing it. And she's like, no. She's like, but my mom I think he says, then something about her mom. She's like, no. And he's like, could it be the dad? And she's like, no. And so nobody, and then he goes to the next person, and the next person's like, yeah, like my mom let my brother move in with him. So when he gets something wrong, it's all the things that I read to you at the beginning of this video about cold reading, okay? Then he says something about the significance of something happening on the same day. And so like somebody being born on somebody's birthday, or somebody passing on somebody's birthday, or something like that. Or like somebody passing on a holiday like Christmas. Well, you've got 5 people on the couch. The reality that somebody passed or died on somebody's birthday or a holiday is pretty likely, okay, that it happened. And so then this one person says that her cousin, he says, significance of something happening on the exact same day. And this girl goes, my cousin passed, and he goes, on the same day? She goes, no, close to the day. Close to my birthday. And I'm like, close to your birthday, girl? Like the day before? And then he says something like that, and she goes, no, like a week away. And I'm like, oh, we are really, like, how is this show sitting on the top 10 of Netflix right now? Then he goes to Chris Appleton. Okay, that's Kim Kardashian's hairstylist, who has a prominent English accent, okay? And he says to him, I feel like there are 2 people living in separate countries, and that there's a loss of a loved one while you're away. And I'm like, is he for real in this? Like, seriously? Are you really for real? Okay. This dude has a prominent English accent, and your reading on him is that you feel like there's a loss of a loved one when you're living in separate countries. Those are his exact words. And I'm like, and Chris Appleton looks at him, he's like, oh my God, yes. And I'm like, y'all are so dumb for falling for this shit. I hope you didn't pay any money. I hope you got paid to be on this show. And that's when I was like, I'm out. I can't watch any more of this. This is so vague. And this is getting people to grasp for hope. And I'm like, I believe in this shit. But I want to see a show where it is undeniable, specific facts, okay? It's like me watching Unsolved Mysteries, and they talk about Roswell all over again, okay? I feel like I could write a book on Roswell because I've seen so many documentaries. And Unsolved Mysteries, their last episode, people are like, I didn't know anything about Roswell. How are you watching anything about UFOs in the last 20 years and you have never heard about Roswell? Unsolved Mysteries didn't bring anything new to the table. If I'm going to see a new psychic show, I want undeniable facts, okay? There is a gal here in Indianapolis. You pay her $100 for an hour. She tells you in the first 5 minutes, you can't even get into her. I have wanted to get into her for years. You can't even book an appointment with her, okay? She says to you when you walk in, I've had 2 friends that have gone to her, write 3 questions down that you specifically want me to answer, okay? And I will answer those questions in the reading. And then you sit on the questions. She doesn't even see what the questions are, okay? My friend went to her. She named her girlfriend by her first name, spelled it, okay? My friend has a 3-letter name that she doesn't spell like how most people spell it. She named her. She said what was going to happen with the relationship. She talked about another family member, named that family member's first and last initial. Okay, and you got people like Tyler Henry. No, I ain't waste my money or my time on Tyler Henry. No, ma'am. Fakety, fakety, fakety. cold readers. And all these cold readers get these talk shows, or get these TV shows. Give me a TV show called Peter the Psychic all day long. Anyway, did y'all watch this crap? Let me know what you thought. I told y'all over here, okay, on the Peter Watches TV channel. We ain't, listen, okay, we ain't being soft over here. We're telling the real deal of how it goes down, okay? And Tyler Henry, you're a fake, okay? You are a fake, Tyler Henry. You better go hang out with Sylvia Brown. Well, she's done passed, okay, but you can't hang out with her. But you go hang out with Teresa Caputo and her big hairdo, because y'all are fakes, okay? And I just can't with it, okay? So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.